stock market has taken a big hit over the past few days. What can you do about that? And if the CDC is right in saying that the spread is inevitable, are you going to be dealing with stock market issues and economy issues for some time to come?
Well, I really think the stock market is something I know a lot about. I think it took a hit maybe for two reasons. I think they look at the people that you watched debating last night and they say if there's even a possibility that can happen, I think it really takes a hit because of that.
So it's important to note the stock market dropped almost 2,000 points before last night's Democratic debate. Just a point of order. Here tonight, Maya Wiley, former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, now with the New School here in New York, and Rick Wilson, longtime Republican strategist, co-founder of the Lincoln Project, a super PAC created by conservatives with the aim of defeating Trump and Trumpism. His new book is Running Against the Devil, a plot to save America from Trump and Democrats from themselves. Welcome to you both. And Rick, this puts us into some new territory.
Sure.
This was the president offering an alternate reality of a potential pandemic. What he may not be able to do is decide his own news here, because if you're living in suburban Cincinnati tonight, northern Kentucky perhaps, and they find local cases, you're going to hear about that on your local news. That's going to become your truth.
Yep. And there's a case tonight being tested in Walton County, Florida. Heart of Trump country.
Yep.
That's not going to be something you can just walk away from. If it turns out to be a real case, we're seeing these things popping up all over. The safe bet was always to say, this could be bad. We'll do everything we can to stop it. But he can't stop himself from self-aggrandizing and lying about things. And it's actually, set aside my normal criticism of Trump, this is a danger to the country that he is not a trustworthy person for the American people. Even people who like him know he BS's them all the time. And now, if he says this is not a problem and people are being hospitalized, it's a problem.
There is something called stewardship, which our presidents have usually felt that in office. I've got you. You, the American people, I've got you. This president decided to relitigate Nancy Pelosi today, went after her congressional district. He diminished Chuck Schumer from the podium, basically gave his reelection case. And think about what the topic was they were supposed to be discussing in there.
Deny, deflect, and denounce. That's the way Trump leads. And unfortunately, and to Rick's point, and to your point about stewardship, that's not leadership. That's self-involvement, that's self-interest, and it's extremely dangerous. What's amazing to me is if Donald Trump is so smart about the stock market, why didn't he turn this into a story about how the stock market is irrational, is responding to fear, and he, as the leader of the free world, is here to tell everyone exactly what he's going to do to help ensure that the irrational stock market can start behaving more rationally. In other words, it's an opportunity for him to explain to the American people how it wasn't about him. It was about a virus that he doesn't control in the sense that it exists. And here's all the ways that he can protect us. And the problem with this president is, rather than leading, he lies.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.